The time has come to find out if my 2 key upgrades have made a difference on this 2022 Marin Bobcat Trail 4. Welcome to the 4th and final video on this 2022 Marin Bobcat Trail 4. In the last video, I installed 2 upgrades in hopes of turning this good bike into a great bike. First, I installed an air fork, a 130mm travel Rockshox Recon specifically. Air forks have adjustability for compression and rebound and can be set up with the appropriate air pressure for your weight to allow proper sag and travel usage. They're also generally lighter. Next, I installed this PNW Ridge dropper seat post with 125mm of travel, complete with a PNW Puget 2x-lever. A dropper post will allow you to adjust your seat height on the fly so you can get the seat out of the way on descents and other trail features. As for everything else on this bike, Marin did a great job. The frame geometry feels good, the Microshift Advent 1x9 drivetrain works well and has plenty of range, and the Tektro brakes do just fine at stopping the bike. So let's hit the trails and find out if these 2 upgrades unlocked the potential of this bike. All right, riding the upgraded 2022 Bobcat Trail 4. First thing, the fork makes a huge difference. I mean, it is instantly noticeable. So much smoother. Goes through all the range. The front end feels lighter. It's way quieter. Woo! Now, the one thing I'll say about this, the Recon specifically, it actually feels better on this bike than it did when I had it on my Rift Zone. You know, it came stock on there, replaced it, sat for a while. But I don't know, it feels even smoother than it did before. If you were looking for a fork for this bike, or really any hardtail, for any bike at all with a coil spring fork, you know, there's other options out there. Rockshox Judy is a little bit cheaper. You've also got things like the SR Sun Tour Radon and Epixon and the Manitou Markor, all budget air forks, but they're going to be so much better than those coil spring forks that comes on a lot of these entry-level bikes. Now, the dropper post is the other thing that has really made a big difference. On a hardtail especially, you've got no rear suspension. Your legs are the suspension. And if that seat post is sticking up where you want it for pedaling, you start going downhill, that thing's getting in your way. It's basically limiting the travel of your legs. So to be able to hit a lever, seat down like that, now the bike can move all around underneath me. It's a game changer. And it's no secret. I mean, that's why they're coming on so many bikes nowadays. But even a entry-level cross-country bike or anything like that could benefit from it. Specifically to this PNW dropper, 125mm of travel. It's the Ridge model. It's their cheapest model, but it works fine. I mean, every bit as good as any other one I've used. The Puget Lever, you know, it's designed really for like a 2x or 3x setup where you've got the shifting levers for your left hand, but it's fine for a 1x setup too. I mean, it's kind of like a stealth style lever, and once you get that muscle memory of getting your thumb there, it's fine. So you might be wondering what upgrade of these 2 is more important, and I would probably say the fork, just because you can benefit from it instantly. With the dropper post, there's a learning curve. You got to plan out what you're doing. You have to be scanning the trail, seeing what's ahead, knowing when to hit that lever to drop the seat down, come up to the obstacle, across it, lever back up, keep on pedaling. And that's just something that takes a little while to get used to, but once you do, it becomes second nature, and you slide around a turn and reap the full benefits of it. That, by the way, was a perfect example of not scanning the trail ahead. So the question I set out to answer was, could these 2 simple upgrades take this good bike and make it a great bike? And the answer is a resounding yes. There is literally nothing that is holding this bike back anymore. Well, except maybe my own skills. And there's nothing I don't like about the bike, except maybe some personal preference things as a result of using this weird riser stem and a shorter steerer tube. The bars aren't quite where I want them, but that's completely irrelevant. The fact is, these two upgrades have made this bike a joy to ride. It's more comfortable, it's more playful, it's also more versatile now too. You know, you could take it on a lot harsher terrain and not feel out of place, not feel undergunned. And really, at the end of the day, it's just more fun to ride. Okay, so it's more fun to ride, but is it really economical to upgrade a bike like this? Well, let's take a look at the numbers. So the cost on this bike is $920. For an air fork, you've got a lot of options. I'm going to say around $200. I've seen, you know, Judy's on sale locally around here for $100 used. Even if you went new, you'd probably be looking at maybe $250 or so. So let's just put $200 there. Now for the PNW Ridge dropper and the lever, the two of those combined are $158, although at the time of filming this, they do have 20% off, but I'm not going to factor that in. So we've got a total cost of $1,278. Now let's compare that to some other bikes. I'm going to just stick with the Marin lineup here because otherwise you could get into comparisons and this video could go on for hours. So the first thing I want to look at is the 2022 Marin Bobcat Trail 5. It's the next model up. The price on that is $1,129, and essentially you're getting a better fork, although only slightly better, better brakes, although only slightly better, and a better drivetrain, but surprise, only slightly better. What you're not getting is an air fork, and you're also not getting a dropper post. So even though this bike is better, I think it's only marginally so, and it also doesn't include the two things that I think really make a difference on this bike. So for those reasons, I don't quite see the value in upgrading to the Bobcat Trail 5. Now let's step it up another notch with the 2022 Team Marin 1. By all accounts and on paper, this is a much better bike, although there's a lot of similarities in the frame geometry of it. Retail price, $1,589. For that, you're going to get better brakes, better drivetrain, better wheels and tires, and better hubs. You're also going to get a tapered head tube and boost spacing on the frame. If you don't know what those are, it's basically more modern standards that are going to give you more upgrade options and just kind of make it a little more future-proof. You will get a basic air fork, but you're not going to get a dropper post with this bike either. Now here's the thing, all these better parts and better specs that you get with this bike, I still only think make a marginal difference in the overall riding experience. The boost spacing, the tapered head tube, you're not even going to notice that. Yes, it's better, but only by a little bit. All the better parts that I listed off, sure they're better, but only by a little bit. If you've got a drivetrain like the Advent that works good, if you got brakes that work good, stepping up a couple notches in the hierarchy isn't really going to improve the ride that much. If those better parts improve the ride by 10%, the air fork and the dropper post do by 1,000%. So what it all boils down to, at least for me, is that this 2022 Marin Bobcat Trail 4 is a very worthy bike to upgrade, both in terms of the performance you're going to get out of it, but also the dollars that you put into it. And that's not always the case. A lot of times upgrading a bike, it just doesn't make sense. You spend money on the cheaper parts that come with it, plus you spend money on the parts that you're upgrading to, and at the end of the day, you will have spent more than just buying a better bike. But I don't think that's really the case here. I mean, sure, if you've got the extra money just burning a hole in your pocket, go ahead and get that Team Marin, throw a dropper post on it, and it's going to be fantastic. But if you don't, then this is still a great option to give you a really good performing bike without spending a ton of money, and you can upgrade it over time to get it exactly how you want it. Well, I thank you all for watching this video. Hope you got something useful out of it or enjoyed it. If you did either of those two things, then give me a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel too. Thanks to PNW for sending this Ridge dropper post. Before making this video, I had never used any PNW components, but all I'd ever heard is really, really good things about them. And I gotta say I'm impressed. I mean, for a budget model to work as well as this does, that really says something. Also, big thanks to Marin for sending me this bike to test out. I've really enjoyed having it, so I'm going to be a little bit sad to see it go, except for my lower back. That's going to be happy to return to full-time riding on the Rift Zone. Anyway, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.